Welcome to the second act of our psychological police procedural, where the criminal mind continues its Sisyphean struggle against the inevitable. Our first scene revisits the aftermath of a high-speed chase, delving deeper into the suspect's post-apprehension mental state. This individual, already facing felony evading charges, provides a raw, unfiltered example of crisis attribution. He desperately attempts to localize his criminal behavior, reducing a dangerous high-speed chase through the streets of West Covina to a single chemically induced relapse and a simple mistake. The core of his defense is an attempt to split the self, the good person who relapsed, versus the blacked out entity that drove the stolen car. From an investigative perspective, the officer expertly uses motivational interviewing, asking open-ended questions like, "Why'd you run?" and relapse with what man to allow the suspect to fill in the blanks. The man's spontaneous confession of drug and alcohol use not only explains his erratic driving, but also subtly justifies the officer's initial suspicion that led to the stop. It's a beautiful investigative feedback loop. The fact that he keeps circling back to his addiction, "I relapsed. My pastor and I ed up tonight," is a psychological anchor point he clings to, hoping it will explain away the intent required for the more severe charges. The officer's professionalism here is noteworthy. He's not emotional, merely collecting the facts necessary for the inevitable arrest for felony, evading a charge that speaks to the willful disregard for public safety rather than his personal demon. The humorous takeaway is that despite the Hollywood theatrics of the chase, the final result is a straightforward arrest dictated by the vehicle's movement, not the suspect's sob story. We then transition to the tale of Peter, the self-appointed technician, a case study in habitual non-compliance. The initial call is a burglary in progress, a high-stakes felony. The sight of a uniform, however, triggers Peter's ingrained, almost Pavlovian flight response. Peter's immediate frantic running when asked to simply come to my car is the clearest possible non-verbal admission of guilt, or at the very least a significant history of negative police encounters. From a psychological standpoint, his running is self-incriminating behavior. He elevates a simple police stop for suspicion based on the reporting party into a definite detention based on his flight. The officer's latest summation to Peter perfectly encapsulates the law's view of this psychology. If you did nothing running, you just added something. Peter's subsequent persistently absurd defense, "I was just fixing the cable. I fixed it for the little kids," is a classic example of low-level cognitive dissonance where the suspect attempts to rationalize an irrational act with a flimsy pro-social explanation. He's trying to replace the image of a fleeing criminal with that of a community service volunteer. The punchline, of course, is the revelation that he has 2 out-of-state warrants and is known for taking off from the cops all the time, confirming that his behavior is not a momentary lapse of judgment, but a deeply entrenched, counterproductive coping mechanism. Peter is a master of delaying the inevitable, turning a 5-minute conversation into a 10-minute sprint, which in the end only guarantees his ride to the station. The irony is his belief that his running is the lesser evil compared to the reason for the stop. The third narrative offers a comparative look at 2 distinct but related criminal profiles. First, the traffic stop on a red Infiniti, again emerging from a high-risk environment, a car meet known for sideshows and burnouts. The driver's immediate flight, including driving on the wrong side of the road and turning off his lights, is aggressive felony, evading a clear expression of fear and reckless disregard. The driver's post-stop explanation is pure teenage anxiety. "I panicked, and I couldn't afford another one ticket. My mom's finding out." This is a younger, less seasoned criminal profile than the Camry driver. His motivation is not addiction or a deep criminal enterprise, but avoidance of parental or financial consequence. The officer adopting a more casual, almost condescending tone. "I thought you were Dominic Toretto over there, bro," deftly deflates the suspect's tough guy facade and confirms the triviality of the initial motivation that led to the felony. His crime is less psychological conspiracy and more a simple stupid decision under pressure, a case of miscalculated risk versus reward. The final case involves Mark pulled over for a faded license plate, which quickly leads to an arrest for possession of stolen property and burglary tools. Mark's nervousness and initial attempts to conceal his right hand are immediate non-verbal cues picked up by the officer, a key component of investigative streetcraft. His probation status for identity theft, a crime of deception, provides the critical investigative leverage for the search. Mark's defense of the stolen goods, "I found a bag with a bunch of merchandise in it at the hotel room I was at," is a transparently ludicrous attempt at the innocent finder defense. The discovery of the magnetic device used to remove security tags, a definitive burglary tool, completely shatters his narrative. This is the moment where the psychological profile shifts from a man who found a bag to a calculated retail thief. The officer uses the object as a conversational weapon. You have the burglary tool right here. Mark is forced to drop his defense, admitting, "I'm not gonna say nothing, man." This progression from minor traffic stop to innocent finder to calculated silence is the perfect illustration of how police procedure, the probation research, can rapidly expose a hidden criminal enterprise. The humor is found in Mark's utterly unconvincing claim that he thought the expensive professional sensor-removing magnets were just thought they were magnets, a line that will surely be met with appropriate skepticism in court. The final tally of goods, well in excess of $1,000, confirms the felony status, a fitting end to a traffic stop that was anything but routine. Our third and final analysis takes a scalpel to the specific behavioral anomalies and tactical investigative responses seen in the field. We begin by examining the psychological fallout of the pursuit, focusing on the subtle shifts in the suspect's narrative. The officer's description of the family background of a colleague, parents wanted her to be a nurse or engineer before she ended up in law enforcement, serves as a humorous, if brief, counterpoint to the criminal psychology, highlighting the alternative behavioral trajectories available. The high-speed pursuit in the silver Camry is a great example of geographical anchoring in a chase. The suspect's continuous circling of the West Covina and La Puente area is not random. It suggests a psychological comfort zone and a reliance on familiarity in a high-stress scenario. This predictable circular route makes the suspect's capture a matter of time and positioning, validating the officer's assessment that he's definitely from this area. The officer's decision to pursue the vehicle based on the manner of driving on the wrong side of the roadway and the location, the known crime motel, illustrates proactive policing based on a threat assessment matrix. The felony evading charges are a consequence not just of the theft, but of the dramatic and reckless way the suspect chose to express his guilt. His ultimate surrender is a recognition of the futility of resistance, a key psychological step in the arrest process. The suspect's final desperate attempt to convey he is not afraid of what you find in there regarding the car's contents is a last-ditch effort at maintaining dignity and control in a situation where both are utterly lost. Next, we look at the case of Peter the jogging janitor, a man who embodies the phrase, "Ignorance of the law is no excuse, but running from it is a felony." His immediate full-out sprint when pulled over for a burglary in progress effectively transforms a non-committed crime into an act of resisting and delaying a police investigation. The core of Peter's psychology is a profound aversion to accountability. The officer's patient yet firm handling of Peter, allowing him to sit and cool down before questioning, is a calculated investigative move. It allows the adrenaline to subside, replacing the fight or flight impulse with a slightly more rational, though still flawed, verbal defense. His repeated, almost tick-like assertion that "all I do is fixing the cable," despite the photographic evidence of him holding the camera that was screwed into the wall, is a humorous illustration of a man desperately clinging to a flimsy reality. His eventual arrest for vandalism is a procedural closure to a case that began with a dramatic flight, proving the old adage that the cover-up is often worse than the crime. The officer's final decision, based on the objective evidence of the camera being removed and his history of non-compliance, overrules Peter's subjective and humorous attempts at self-justification. The final two cases offer a rich comparison in the world of vehicle-related crime. The red Infiniti driver's flight from the car meet is driven by fear of minor consequence, a ticket, or disappointing his mother, leading to a major felony. This is a classic young offender's blunder. His crime is an effective response based on panic, not a predatory response based on calculated gain. The officers quickly move from pursuit to a calm educational interrogation, using the severity of the felony, evading as a clear and immediate deterrent for him and the wider car meet community. Conversely, Kim, on the stolen moped, presents a more complex deflection strategy. Found on a stolen vehicle with an obvious manipulated ignition. Her defense is a complex web of externalizing blame. My boyfriend Patrick let me borrow it and feigned ignorance. I was not aware. She attempts to play the role of the passive victim. But the officer uses the objective evidence, the VIN confirms stolen, and the manipulated ignition to immediately dismiss her claim. The manipulation of the ignition, a clear modus operandi of vehicle theft, is the critical piece of physical evidence that undermines her verbal defense. The officer's final statement. This context. Mark's arrest for the burglary tools and stolen merchandise is the investigative highlight. The initial traffic stop is a tactical pretext stop. His probation status for identity theft, a crime of deception and exploitation, immediately sets a high suspicion benchmark. His confession of finding the goods and thinking they were magnets is a humorous yet predictable denial of criminal expertise. The sheer quantity of high-value items, coupled with the professional-grade security tag remover, destroys his defense. This is a clear case of an organized career offender whose small-time traffic violation exposed his large-time retail theft operation. The officer's focus on the $950 felony threshold in California demonstrates the procedural awareness of the legal thresholds that separate a misdemeanor shoplifting from a career-ending felony. Mark's final defeated silence, "I'm not going to say nothing, man," is the moment the psychological game ends, and the procedural reality of the felony arrest begins.